Verbal of practice.
All right. We are live.
Awesome.
We are live. We are
And
live.
Zoom.
And right.
Really?
All right. Okay.
And Zoom everything is recording. We are all in the red.
All right. And I see we've got a nice, pretty little logo.
Quiet on set.
All right. Quiet on set. All right. Everybody. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the next installment of Australian Craft Distillers Shooting the Shit. And fly, go away. And as you can tell, it's live, it's unrehearsed. And for those who haven't seen what we're up to, basically, it's that's exactly what it is. It's just shooting the shit. It's craft distillers talking to craft distillers and what's going on in their world, sharing stories, having a few laughs on the way, and we may have a few serious questions just to throw it in and see where we go. So without further ado, let's first of all introduce the team. So I can't see the team on my screen. So first of all, oh, there's one. So Luke, local nerd, IT support, helped create this, putting this conceptually together to actually it's working. And Luke is an avid whiskey drinker, a brewer, a distiller, and a good mate. So you're there, Luke.
I'm here. Hello.
Good. Awesome. Say good day to everyone, and you have just then. Good. Okay, then we come to a good friend of mine, my right-hand man in Craftworks. Anyone on social media who follows us knows all about Todd, or the Todd. He was the apprentice's apprentice. He's now the apprentice, because I'm no longer the apprentice, because I pulled myself out of a 3-year self-imposed apprenticeship. So without further ado, the Todd. He's there.
Hey.
He's
Good
there.
night, guys.
He's there. All right. And then we move on to the stars of the night, the guests of the night, the celebrities of the night, and the people we're going to have some fun with and shoot the shit. And we've got Robbie and Emma from Derwent Distillery down in Tassie. How are you guys?
Hey guys. Hiya.
Slander? Good. Awesome you're here. It's awesome. So first thing we do is we say to everyone out there, we want you to be drinking something Australian. So sit down, join in, send us your questions. We'll try and answer your questions, but please enjoy an Australian spirit. It doesn't have to be whiskey. It can be gin. It can be a liqueur. It could be whatever you want. So, but we want you to do that, and we're doing exactly the same. We're drinking someone else's product. So, Robbie, Emma,
hey.
What's in your glass?
Oh, well, we've been a bit cheeky initially. We've got a couple lined up, but we thought we might just start with our own.
Yeah. Okay, the rules change. Let's go.
One sec.
Sorry,
Why is it? Why
busy here?
Why Emma's doing that? Yeah, I'm actually drinking some of your whiskey, Derwent Distillery, Botrytis cask. I'm a huge fan of Botrytis casks. We've had a lot of success with Botrytis casks. 5th release, 46%. Hope you enjoy, mate. I'm sure I will. I'm looking forward to it. So let's kick it off. First things first. So how long have you been in lockdown? You've just come out of lockdown, Tassie. How long have you been in lockdown?
We've been pretty lucky, actually. We only went into lockdown in the first stages when there was a national lockdown, and we haven't gone back into it since then. So we've been very lucky indeed down here.
Yeah,
we haven't been in lockdown since, I want to say, maybe.
It was I think it was the end of March when they rolled it out for everyone. That hospitality shut down and cellar doors shut down and things like that as well. And at the same time, we were at Kempton at the time, Old Kempton Distillery, and or I was. I think you were gone by that point. But everyone got stood down from the staff. So that was pretty much all round. That was, and then we had clusters that formed up in the northwest.
Yeah.
And then once they cleared that was it. It was looking pretty bleak at first, but then they let people do takeaways, and restaurants were able to keep functioning because of that, and a lot of people did really well. And what we found was that a lot of people wanted to support Tasmania So a lot of Tassies were there, just eating out. No, not eating out, but ordering in every night, which was great. And a lot of businesses were able to stay open that way. So we didn't get too many casualties. So that was pretty positive.
That's an interesting point you make there, because it's the same where I am. The cellar door traffic, if we got the roller door up and we have cellar door, we're doing really well right now. It's like Australia Day every day. It's really good crowds. And it is locals, locals. There's people coming out of Sydney, it's locals, it's tourists, local tourists. But there's a lot of support, and there's a lot of people going, wow, I've never seen this. I'm exploring, because I can't go overseas, so I'm exploring what's in my own backyard. So I imagine, the Tassies are doing the same. So they're keeping the thriving distilling industry going. Is it quite buoyant there right now? Is it? How would you describe the last 6 months and now what's going on with the industry down in Tassie?
Well, last night I was out. There was a TWSA unofficial meeting. They had a meeting at the so it's the Spirits Association.
Hang on. You mean all going to the pub?
Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
That was it.
Probably not too shy to say this, but he was the president of that association up until recently. So
oh, really? I didn't know.
It was nice for him to catch up with a few people from there.
To be honest, I hadn't realised that it was on. I was going to another function that was there at the same time, and it just so happened that all the distilleries were there. But I think anyone that had like a tourism front, like a cellar door or a bottle shop or whatever, I think they did suffer quite a bit. I know with Kempton, they've got something like 14, 15 staff all in, including management. And when they had to shut down all the kitchen and cellar door, it hit them pretty hard.
And I work in a similar job at the moment, but for a brewery rather than a distillery.
Right.
And just recently, I'd say in the last month, since borders opened up between Victoria and New South Wales in particular, we've just been inundated with interstate tourists. It's been awesome.
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting time right across Australia. It's a great opportunity for people to get out and check their own backyard. I've got Australian tourism visiting the shed on Friday, so I'm looking forward to having. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to having a chat, and they're doing a lot of promo, and so awesome. So we'll see what happens. Okay, let's talk about you guys. So let's start with. Let's work backwards, actually. So this in the glass I'm drinking.
Yes.
Which is very nice indeed. So this is independent bottling?
Yes.
This is an independent bottling. So you independent bottling and you're building a distillery.
Yes.
So I know exactly your road.
Copy and paste.
And the Crafty way.
It's a good way to do it.
Yeah, totally.
So starting with where you are with the distillery, right? Where are you at with your distillery? What are the challenges you're having? And then work back to your IB, how you gone with your IB, and then work back to the start, how you started.
All right, cool. Well, we're quite lucky because recently kind of things have come together quite well. So there's been a bit of planning involved in getting permits and DA approvals and building permits, all that kind of stuff.
We've been in the scale of things especially as we met a lot of people through the Old Kempton Distillery School, and as part of that could see just how hard it can be to work with council to get those permits through. Really, we've been blessed. The Brighton Council, they want us there. They were, when we went and met up with them, they were really excited by what we were doing, and mentioned that if this particular piece of land fell through and we weren't going to go with it, that maybe they'd have some other properties for us to take a look at. So they want us there. Nice.
Makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then just we bought the property that we're on, the distillery's been built on, and we just 2 days ago, it was yesterday.
Yeah,
it was yesterday. We laid the slab, so that's all down there. And then I get told that the bill's going up at the end of January. which is bloody awesome.
That's quick.
We've got our still. We've had our still for since the start of COVID, I reckon.
Yeah.
Maybe even before it, was it? Yeah. So that's cool. So it's all kind of fitting into place, you know.
Yeah.
So we can actually see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel coming up. So that's been awesome.
And one of the challenges come across is powering it, and we're going to try and set up our distillery off grid. Which comes with its own challenges.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And, we've decided to go with gas.
Direct fire distill.
Yeah.
We're going to get solar put in for ancillaries, pumps, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then we'll be where we are is literally on the Derwent River, which is obviously Tassie's main river. But we've got no water rights to it, and so there's no water access to the property.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to run it on tank water.
Okay. Yeah.
So
and you'll just tanker in tank water, or
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, right.
So you're on the river, but you don't have access to the river.
Yeah, mate. I know.
It's so
mental, isn't it? It's totally nuts.
Because there's something in the water, or something about the water in Tassie, isn't there?
Yeah, you just can't get your hands on it.
Maybe one day we'll get it. We've been keeping an eye out for water rights and for people that maybe don't want them anymore. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So just based on water, there's a question from Facebook saying, will you guys be recycling your water? And
we'll be reticulating it for our condenser.
Yeah, so for the condenser, we'll be recirculating it there, definitely. So we're going to have 3 tanks, 2 for that purpose and 1 for potable.
Yeah.
Which we'll treat. So yeah, I mean, like, we want to make sure that we're reducing, you know, as much wastage as we possibly can, obviously. And you know, as we kind of grow into it, we'll continue to look for ways how to, you know, make it more efficient, but also, you know, other uses for whatever that we're creating. So
yeah,
right.
Footprint as much as possible.
Definitely.
And tell us about. Everyone's interested in stills, so tell us. What's the story with your stills?
So we're bringing ours in, which is there's I think it's Derwent Distillery, there's Captain Bly's, there's a couple others as well that have all got it from them. We initially got it was the Melbourne Brew Fest or whatever it was. It was the it was basically a like whatever you call those things. I can't remember what I'm trying to say here. The
exhibition,
trade show or something.
That's it. Yeah. And yeah, the fact that so many people that we knew had already got stills and brewing equipment from them, we knew that the quality was there. And the recommendations, you know, were pretty high. So and we had a good experience with them all as well, you know. So we were able to put our input into how we wanted the still to look and perform. And
we loved the line arm in particular, and the still that we've selected is really long.
It's a beautiful still.
Yeah.
It's basically going to encourage a lighter spirit. And I'm looking forward to it because it's, you know, I can still create those lovely oily, viscous.
And we love Macallan,
you know.
So that's kind of.
But also at the same time, I want to play a bit with peat as well. So it'll be really good for that. So yeah, I'm really excited. Plus, it's a beautiful thing to look at. It's gorgeous. It's all copper as well, so we chose to go all copper.
So what do you work on at the moment then?
So what we how we're making our own spirit, So we when I was at Kempton Distillery, I was essentially leasing the equipment when I was there. I actually did all my distillations, so nobody's actually touched any of this whiskey apart from me from right the way through. So the only thing I didn't have a full control over was the brew itself, because the facilities that they've got were too small to accommodate the brewing equipment. So they have it. I mean, I used to do the brewing with Dean Jackson at the old Redlands estate. But when they moved to Kempton, everything was, or everything is, heritage listed. So it wasn't like you could just knock through the walls and create another space for
I
brewing.
remember.
Yeah, you remember that. So we decided that we'd focus on the distillation side of things, and but the good thing is we used I think we used about 4 different breweries all in. There was Captain Bly's, who was great. That gave us a lot of flexibility and input, direct input into how we were creating the mash bill that we looked for with the yeast as well. Then we went with, to get volume, we went with Moo Brew at the time. They were good. I mean, they were producing, we knew that would work anyway, because Spring Bay Distillery, Cam and Susie, they came to Bedlands to do their distillery course, and then they set up Spring Bay Distillery. And they were actually initially buying the wash from us, but doing it with us. And then they got the wash from Moo Brew. So we knew how the spirit was going to, what kind of type of spirit we could create from that. So, and then just as Moo Brew shut down their operations to distilleries, we looked at, I think it was Hobart Brewing Company. And then now pretty much everyone's with Last Rites Brewery. And they're great, they're very accommodating, and they've worked with
knowledgeable.
And a lot of different distilleries in terms of creating their own difference and how the wash. So it's not just the same wash that's getting pumped out to every distillery. There are a couple of distilleries that have got their own input into that. So they've kind of given them.
So that's quite a change, is it? That just on the sourcing of wash in Tasmania, whereas previously there was a lot they were using. The brewery would just make a wash, and the wash was the wash. Now it's getting more tailored to the individual distilleries, and they've got control over their own mashes.
Yeah, there's a good handful, I'd say, who have got more of a control over, and they work with the brewery, and they're very accommodating, as I said. So they're bloody brilliant. So that's awesome. So
that's what we'll be doing once we open. Is we probably won't have the infrastructure to brew initially.
The further stage.
We really want to work very closely with whoever we choose to do our wash, so that we can be really creative.
That's something I've learned over the years. So I started with wash that I got from a brewery called Zigzag, which was about half an hour away from here. And I took a stout recipe, their stout recipe, and they were very transparent with it. We opened it up, and I went, oats have got to go. And we just took it straight down to just malted barley. And then over a course of a very short period of time, I changed the malt supplier. They were using Simpsons predominantly. And I wanted to use Voyager Craft malts because I'd known them for many years and I had history with them. So I had total control of my mash bill straight away, which was great, yeast as well as the barley. Then one day they decided, well, we don't want to do this anymore, the new owners. So it was like, okay, I've got to do this myself. I reckon in my journey, the brewing aspect and getting the brewing under control has been one of the hardest things. There's so much magic, as you know, that happens in brewing. There's so many levers you can push, and you can push them the wrong way. So it's an absolute learning. So if you can partner with a brewery and go through that side of it, that's just so advantageous, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah, totally.
Definitely, especially when we have limited water supplies, because brewing takes a fair amount of water.
Oh yeah.
And also there's more distilleries that are getting their own setup with a brewing setup. So like McHenry, for example, McHenry Distillery in Port Arthur, he's got a great setup that he's put in. So it's pretty much a whole shed now, just dedicated to his own brewing setup. He's playing about with different grains and malts, and playing with peat as well. So even looking at that, because Bill's a good mate of ours, if he's watching, Bill.
Bill was one of the very first people I spoke to about when I started independent bottling. And he said to me, come and spend half a day with me. I'll tell you what I know, so you don't make some of the mistakes that I made. Gave me some really good advice, and he's a top bloke, and he's
total gentleman.
He's a bit of a grandfather in the industry now, isn't he? Down there, I would say.
I'd say so. He's
an old man. Yeah, definitely. Grumpy old bugger.
Sorry, Bill.
No, we love him.
He tried to grow a beard, a Bill Lark beard recently, actually. That failed, so he shaved it all off. So
I think Ellie made him do that too.
Yeah.
So that's not happening anymore.
Okay,
Actually, that's-
so you're, when I said before you're independent bottling, you're
Yeah.
you're more brewing, you're more distillery OB as opposed to IB, because you've had
Yeah.
total control. So bugger off, Jesus. I've just opened up my shed and something must have died in here, or I don't know, but there's a lot of flies and mosquitoes. So
It just
that's
adds to
not
the
good.
flavour,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
We're all curious, you know.
It's not a good advert, is it? No, it's not. What was I going to say? So okay, so yeah, you're almost in a different category. You're IBOB in the middle, or
Yeah.
70%
Yeah.
OB. So so go back to now. When you started laying barrels, how did
Yeah.
that start? Why did that start?
Well, I'd been involved with a few distilleries at the time. We'd already moved into Old Kempton, and I'd always wanted to do it. To be honest, when I left LAC, I felt that I was ready to look into doing this for myself. That was my dream. I knew what my passion in life was now. I'd found my, what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And, I'm a bloody saver, so I was just like, everything I've got and everything I've not got, I want to put into creating my own identity in the whiskey world and give it my all. And Bill helped me a lot, Bill Lack, in terms of helped us, actually,
different locations and venues, and really he was very supportive.
He was great. He was great, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree on that.
Yeah.
He's helped a lot of people in the industry. But what happened was that we had a couple of options available to us, and that's when Bill said to us about coming in to manage Redlands at the time. And it was good because Emma, up to that point, hadn't been really involved in the industry. So it was a great way to introduce the two of us into working together and doing the same thing, and that was great. Yeah, it was about 6 years ago. It was 6 years ago. And so that was cool. And when we moved to, we were only going to give it 6 months, actually. We said to the Redlands guys, like, we give it 6 months, that'll allow us to set up what we need to set up from our end, but we'll give you everything that we've got. And then we'll give you a handover period of a few months so that whoever you get to the places, they've got the benefit of, extracting all the knowledge that we can give them, and there's a nice tidy handover there for them. So that worked for everybody. But in that 6 months, we achieved a lot. Not just us two, the whole business. The whole team was Dean, myself, and Emma. There was three. We were actually Robbie, Emma, and Dean, Team Redlands. So we we'd achieved a lot. Dean's whiskey was amazing, and
that was a highlight of.
That was awesome. Highlight of life.
It
was bloody brilliant.
Launching Redlands whiskey. It was a huge night. It was so much fun. We had most of the Tassie industry there, and quite a few sore heads, I think, by the end of that night. It was good.
That night we got a lot of people that we admire and respect in the industry coming up to us, shaking their hands and say, "We'd be daft to leave this just now," And we agreed with it. We knew that they were, that they were right. So
creating something pretty special.
Yeah. So we put everything that we had into doing what we were doing there. The three of us were just, gave it our all and put our own identity into it, and we just treated it like it was our own business, and it thrived basically. We went through, we messed some things up, we got some things right, but ultimately it was a great experience for all of us. Yeah, we moved to the distillery in 7 days. We got other distilleries from all over Australia going, right, so I'm experiencing this now, and how did you guys do it? And, what do I need to do? And what's the bit, and it was really, bloody hell, we just flipped it, mate.
So that actually leads into a nice question from Facebook. Paul Mills has said, is keen to hear about the challenges of establishing a new brand from scratch.
Yeah.
And what's sort of one thing you've learned throughout the process?
Hang on, before you answer that, I've just got a comment. Luke, you must have a new lighting system or microphone.
I'm very red, and I'm very hot.
No, you're looking sexy, mate. You're looking sexy. It's a new look, and you got the logo on the background, and now you're even redder. So I just
good. Tom, thank you.
Done all the
Appreciate
years.
it.
Give him one of your new sound effects. Just
Yeah. Wait until you tell a bad joke. I'm on the button, mate. I'm on the button.
Now, what was the question for Robbie? Because
So
I can't remember.
the question was challenges of establishing a brand from scratch.
Yeah.
What was the one sort of thing that if I'm looking to start my own brand?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's an interesting
it's a big question.
Yeah. I would say probably be realistic with your timelines, I think is a major one. And even though we have released quite a few products through having worked with Old Kempton and previously Redlands, you know, we have a pretty good understanding of how long it takes to get your bottles and design your labels and print your labels and make sure that the logistics are all sorted. But no matter what you do, always add an extra couple of months onto that, I would say, because especially when you're trying to release during a global pandemic, things are do get a bit delayed.
Let me tell you a story about what happened to us. So first release, we have a timeline. We've committed to it. We think everything's under control. We've decanted the barrels. We're all happy. It's all good, right? And didn't have enough storage in the shed for our glass, pallet of glassware. So that's okay. So it was stored at a farm not far from here. And the day that we're bottling, and Todd was down, Kathy, who's my reality check manager, which is Todd's wife, she has
a hard job, just putting it out there.
Exactly. Andrea, Mrs. Crafty, she was here. So it's all good. So Andrea and I go and get the pallet, take the ute. We're all happy. Open up the pallet, and I pick up a bottle and I go, "Oh, nice shiny bottle. Oh, this is good. Not dusty like the ones we got back at the shed." And I look at the top, and it's cork.
Yeah. Oh,
we're screwed.
Oh, bugger.
So we were screwed. We were screwed.
Literally.
We were screwed. So Kathy drove 7 hours return journey to see Marty Pye. Marty says hi, by the way, Emma.
Yeah.
Marty, woo!
To pick up and borrow some corks just so we could bottle something.
Oh, does he want them back?
Yeah, we haven't even talked about that. Yeah. And so it was an absolute disaster. Saberglass. It was their error, but they responded magnificently.
That's good.
They sent us corks. TNT overnight, but TNT worked on we'll get it to you when we want. It was about 5 days later. Oh, but at least, we got them corked and it went further. So from there, just quickly, it was like the shrinks wouldn't work. The shrink sleeves wouldn't work because the diameter of the bottle was slightly different. Yeah, and I'm there going, "Oh, this is not good. This is not good." And then I was with Ed from OCD, and he goes, "Why don't you just wax them?" And I go, "Oh, mate, no, I tried it. Oh, it's disaster. Absolute disaster.
The worst."
I hated that.
Well, he showed me how to do it, and guess what? We waxed, and guess what? We're probably going to continue to wax. So logistics and management of it is
I look forward to telling that to Mrs. Crafty and the reality check manager. When we said we waxed, there was 2 people that did all the waxing.
We had
the ladies as well.
With our first release at Kempton, and I'll never forget, it was the day of, and we'd already I think we had a pre-sale online or something, so we'd sold stock and people were expecting to get it. And we were finalising it and putting the closures on, and I'd found a wine closure that was just the right colour to match, do you remember this? To match the label, and it was actually a private bottling, so similar to what we're doing now. Redlands had a couple of casks up their sleeves, and we were bottling that. It was called Old Stables, and it's a bit iconic these days. And what had happened was because where the distillery was is about an hour and a half out of Hobart, and the wine closures were probably only about 2 mil too small for the neck of the bottle. Yeah. So we had to warm them in our hands and then try and like gradually stretch them, but not too much so that they didn't split, and just try and, because they don't have any stretch to them unless you heat them a little bit, but if you really heat them, they shrink.
They shrink.
So,
That's the idea.
And we were doing on zero budget.
Yeah.
Like absolutely mate, like $0, mate.
And I think we had to do it for about 35.
There was 25 bottles, I think.
Yeah, and our fingers were raw by the end of the day from just trying to stretch out these bloody
See,
closures.
this is all about shooting the shit. This is the shit that happens
Yeah.
that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah,
right?
true.
And when
you were talking about waxing there, when we decided on the bottle we were going to use, it was the square cubic bottle that's much wider and thicker neck.
Yeah.
So when you actually put the cork on it, when you're waxing it, it's bloody hard and it cracks, and you've got to like double dip it into the wax. And then if it's too hot, then it melts the glue of the cork. And we had, as I said, zero budget, right? We were dealing with, I'm not joking, a campfire stove set and a shitty stainless steel used a million times wee pot, right? So there was no consistent, and a thermometer. So it was like fluctuating like between lumpy solid to like absolutely runny gooey and like on the shit. Do you know what I mean?
And we were working in, sometimes there was one day where it was so cold, it was -8 for I think 3 or 4 days. It was so cold that the toilets froze over and our pipes froze over, and we had to carry pails of water from the river that ran along the back of the property to where we were living on site so that we could wash our pots and pans. It got that cold. So it was quite hard to do wax when it was really, really chilly. Yeah.
I imagine having to drive to Sandy Bay just to do a poo. It was unbelievable. Do you know what I mean?
That was really uncomfortable.
So these are the people are asking, how do you establish a brand? It's hard
bloody work.
It's hard bloody work.
A good sense of humour.
Yeah. One thing I'd say to people is, whatever you think it's going to cost, multiply that by 3 at least as a starting point. Exactly. Don't expect things just to happen. They don't. And the approach that we took with building a brand is we actually built a story before we had a product. So when we opened up the doors and went Dada, people knew what Dada was. One of the things that I see is some people they invest heavily on equipment, they invest heavily on everything, but they're absolutely zero profile. And then they open the doors and they're Dada and there's no one there.
Yeah. And in fact, one of the reasons that we picked Derwent Distillery, obviously because the Derwent River runs through the property that we've ended up building on, but also because it has a story already.
The second distillery ever in Australia.
Ever built in Australia. So it was built in
1823.
Yeah, in South Hobart. And our first few stories on Facebook actually visited the original site. So if you go back through and you look at our Facebook page, you can see where the original Derwent Distillery was set up. And we visited it actually when our son must have only been a couple of months old. So we were super sleep deprived. Don't even know how we did it. And then we just really like to research the people that were involved in it. And our dream would be to find like their recipes or maybe even an empty bottle.
We know what they used to make. That'd be amazing. Just one like.
Oh, we lost you for a moment there. Sorry.
Yeah, just say that again, Robbie. We just lost you for a second.
In other words, you don't bloody understand my Scottish accent.
No. We're doing okay. We've got subtitles. It's all right.
One of the things that I was thinking about starting a brand, if I look at when we first made the decision to do this for ourselves, there was only like 9 distilleries in Tasmania.
Yeah, true.
And in such a short space of time, there's 60 now. And you know, 60. I could probably, and you look at just the amount of distilleries in Australia that have come online in the last, let's say 6 years or 7 years. It's a much different place. It's a different world now. It was easy to see how you could fit in with things and collaboratively and have your own story and your own path to go. But now it's a case of like shit, you know, it's a completely different world. And not only that, being at Kempton where there was a brand already existing and a successful one at that, but with a great story, great narrative, and the rest of it, I was still going to bottle shops, and ultimately you need to sell what you're going to produce. And the bar industry and you know, like and the bottle shops, there's such a competition with all the different brands and choices that are available now. That how do you see yourself fitting in this? What is your point of difference? How are you going to stand out for the crowd? What is your story that's going to let your story stand out from so many other great and wonderful stories that are out there? So it's so that's a big one, I think.
It's a big one, and I'd also say, to add to that, don't just go to a marketing department, spend your money and buy something off the shelf. You can't do it. People can pick authenticity straight away, and when it's not authentic, it just doesn't resonate with the people that are buying our product. It's as simple as that. I mean, we took the brand Humanizing the Art of Whiskey, which is all about the storytelling, right? And the good, the bad, the ugly, and with the brand right from day one, it was very much telling the story and making it accessible to people. And when people come into cellar door, it's another level again. And when you're standing in front of people and telling stories, it's another level again. And people connect on that, and that's a point of differentiation. And everyone finds their own points of differentiation. Before I go any further,
nice.
Robbie's really one of your first ever Tassie whiskey jobs was with Overeem, so that holds a very special place in our heart.
When I was there was only Overeem was 3 people. It was Jane Overeem, or at the time Jane Overeem, Katie Took, who's now Katie Locke, and myself. So we were. I had no license. I didn't drive, so I was hand walking all in my Woolies bags. All the different bottles to all the bottle shops and bars and restaurants all over town. So sad we get there was always walking with a shopping bag with high quality premium whiskey in it.
You need to write the story. For me, Overeem holds special importance because I visited it in 2014. And I was in love with Scottish whiskey. I'd gone down the rabbit hole with Brooke Laddie in particular. And it was my 50th birthday. I took some friends down and our partners and did a little tour around with Brett Steele. Right?
I'm running to him tonight at the bottle shop.
Say
good day from me, right? We did the tour, and we're driving around suburbia Hobart, and we pull up in a driveway and go, what the hell? And so we saw, the original Overeem shed. And for me, that was a massive inspiration. I came away and I thought, I changed my concept of whiskey from big Scottish to, shit, I could actually do this in a shed. And that's what started me on my journey, honestly, for independent bottling. It was like, and boom, I just went off from there. It was awesome. Little did I know that they weren't brewing on site.
They leave that messy stuff to someone else. It's wise, I think.
Exactly.
Oh, did we find out about the messy stuff, didn't we?
Oh yeah, the stuff's still on the ceiling. And that leads nicely what you just said there, Todd, to my next question. And this is a deep dive into the technical aspect of things now. So the recipe of Craftworks, the main recipe of Craftworks, is built on a stout beer. With a love, a fascination of specialty malts and what flavors those specialty malts can impart in a young, bright whiskey, because we're not making old 12-year-old Scottish whiskey. So your mash bill, you can build a really complex mash bill, and those young flavors, those flavors will penetrate through in a young whiskey. So I'm super excited about that. At the 2-year mark, we proved the experiment was right. It could have been a disaster, but it proved it right. And our first release is sort of along the lines of a a Glenmorangie Signet type style whiskey, for want of a better word, and we're very, very happy with it.
Mhm.
There's a lot of distillers experimenting with malts.
Yep.
A lot of them are looking at it from what's going on in America, how the American distillers industry is built on the back of the craft brewers industry.
Yep.
And in Australia, you've got the Scotchifiers, for a better word, and you've got the American fires and blends in between. And I see that as really dynamic processes happening in Australia and what's happening in distillation space. So what do you think of what's happening in general across Australia, and people deep diving into malts and yeasts and fermentation periods and open top ferments and lactic ferments and everything? What's your take on all that, and how does that fit in with your story and where you want to go in the future, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's bloody amazing. I think it's fantastic. I think it's where we need to go.
Yeah.
I think for a long time, Scotland's dominated the whiskey market. They've got long histories. They've got to go back to hundreds of
They've
years.
certainly got a longer history than we do.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
They have a certain provenance that they like to work towards, though. So they may have, although there probably are, and there are some distilleries in Scotland that are becoming more creative. Generally, people expect a certain style from certain distilleries. So they, whereas I know Robbie, he worked very closely when he was the president of the TWSA in creating an appellation for Tasmanian whiskey.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, when and I was actually working as the exec officer at the time, so I got to come into the meetings as well. And when we were all catching up, a lot of the conversation revolved around making sure that we maintained quality with the appellation, but also really managed to allow people to experiment.
Yes.
So it's finding that balance, isn't it, of making sure that we've, as Tasmania, not only Tasmania, but even Australia have a really fantastic reputation. So making sure that we maintain that, but allow people to still experiment.
It's really important not to copy and paste what someone else has done successfully or whatever, And that's for them, and that's their identity, and that's great. We are such a young, thriving industry that it's really covering leaps and bounds. In fact, I think the growth rate we've seen is far greater, and numbers wise anyway, than Scotland's had. Do you know what I mean? There's so much potential. Whiskey drinkers are changing now. There's the way that whiskey's perceived now, the way that whiskey's been drunk is so varied and diverse that I think it's important that distilleries look beyond the norm and the safety kind of, what's safe and what's going to work for you. Like, just push the boundaries and really, if you've got a concept and an idea that you want to try, then bloody do it, mate. And like you say, it was like it could have ended in disaster. But Bill Lark will tell you that some of the best stuff that he's ever made was some of the stuff that he thought, oh, that didn't work out what I wanted, but oh shit, it's actually bloody gorgeous. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
totally.
I think it's great, mate. I think it's amazing. I think it's what we need to do and keep doing it.
You want as well, although you need to have the staple SKUs, and you need to have products that people can go back to again and again and know what they're expecting. I think when you look at the market at the moment, the distilleries that are doing really well are the distilleries that have things that are keeping consumers engaged and whiskey drinkers engaged. They want to be able to go and try a weird red gum barrel or a Patron's cask or there's lots of other different styles of cask or yeast strains, and that's what whiskey drinkers are wanting. They obviously want their go-to whiskies on a daily or a weekly basis, but they want that special one that they know is like rare or limited.
It's a bit of a reflection of what's happening in the craft beer space.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much a reflection. I'll tell you a story. So this weekend I had a friend of mine in, friends, and we were just tasting a few barrels. And so Todd and I have this one barrel called the Uncertainty. It was going to be called What the Fuck, but we saved that for another barrel. So this one's called the Uncertainty, and it's called the Uncertainty because I got a batch of overcarbonated stout. This is in
Right.
the early days. And I distilled it, and it made bugger all spirit. And so Todd and I talked to oh, Jesus, you know, and I was just sitting around the shed in the receiver, just being a pain in the ass, right? It was like, it sounded like a good idea at the time, not such a good idea. So then I put it into a barrel, which is an ex-Imperial Stout barrel that I picked up from a ciderette that originally was a Lark barrel.
Cool.
So a bit of a story there. So
Nice.
we had that component. And then we had another component, and we had a hop ferment, and Todd and I distilled it, and we thought, oh, it's just got this metallic-y note, oystery note. Don't like it. It's not our Craftworks spirit. What do we do with it? And then we went, poof, threw it together in the barrel, all right? And so it's called the Uncertainty Barrel. And we've tasted it, and it's interesting. But in the weekend, I tasted it with my mates, and it's got a real stone fruit thing going on,
Nice.
but it finishes with a real umami, savory type note on it. And it's like, this is really, really interesting. And it's not a release, it's still in the barrel, and we'll just continue to monitor it. But when shit like that happens, that's really exciting because you learn something from it. Cool. So Todd, we've got to do more hop ferments, and we've got to make some beer. That's what we've got to do, all right?
Sure do.
It's really exciting when you start to think about the possibilities of what you can do. Yeah. I know Robbie's excited.
That's the exciting thing is, you know, we're small, we're agile. And I had this discussion when I did a training session with Anne Gigney with the Tassie Academy a few years ago. Hi, was Anne on? Hello, Anne.
Hopefully.
Yeah, she's on. Hi, Anne.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. And the presenter, it was from Scotland. I can't remember. Alan was his name. That's right. We did the very first one, the very first one that Anne put together.
Nice.
And we were talking about the Scottish industry and that, and we were talking about Australia. And it was like the Scottish were like oil tankers. They take a lot to slow down and change direction. We like speedboats.
Yeah.
You know, we're all over the place. We can do different things. And that's the exciting thing about the Australian space, you know, the craft industry. And everyone's doing their, well, not everyone, but a lot of people doing their thing and taking it different directions. And so the whole collaborative nature of the industry, personally, I think is fundamental to our overall success.
Absolutely.
You know, if it goes into a cutthroat, you know, we're trying to rip each other down, it's not going to be good for anyone. It doesn't need to go that way. If collaborative, we grow. That's Bill Luck's philosophy.
That's what we've always found. I mean, we catch up with people like Cam and Susie and Damien Mackey and lots of different distillers down here, and everyone's just so willing to share their knowledge and, you know, help out when they can. Obviously, Bill McHenry, bless that man, he's amazing to us. So, there's just a lot of people that really, really help.
Do you think that the change of whiskey drinkers wanting to experiment with different things, like you said earlier, different barrel types, different yeast types, that sort of thing, will that, do you think, lead distillers like yourselves to go for smaller bottle sizes? I mean, as a consumer, for myself, it's almost a risk to buy a large 500, 750 ml bottle or 700 ml bottle, but it's quite accessible to buy a smaller bottle. Do you think the industry will move that way?
It's a good question.
I think that it comes down to whether the whiskey drinker is buying as a collector or buying as to consume. There's two different, and sometimes they'll buy both. They'll get two, and one to collect and one to consume. So.
I've got some that I'll drink and other bottles that I'll save, but certainly there are things that I want to drink.
Yeah.
I want to see what the distiller was trying to do and not just imagine it.
Yeah, I'm always of the opinion that they should be opened up.
I think it's important. I think the way that the world's going now is the world's a much smaller place. Whiskey drinkers are much more informed, educated, know what they want, and the accessibility between consumers and the producers is it's phenomenal what we've got here. And that's actually one of the main reasons why I didn't just get involved in the industry. I moved here in the first place. I was not for moving to Tassie whatsoever until I realised that there was this burgeoning industry that was done so well, and the quality of what I was drinking was just phenomenal. And the fact that I could sit down in a room with essentially the founders of that state and of those distilleries, I thought, my God, this is like shit. This is like light bulb moment. Why have I never thought this? This is like, I'm moving here. This is it, you know.
History in the making.
When you look at, fast forward it to, you know, like when you were saying like about listening to the consumer and going, would you do it in smaller bottles? Like I think maybe like for special releases, or you know, like the uncertainty, or you know, something like that, you know, we can go, well, okay, there seems to be an interest here from, you know, this section of, you know, the consumers that are, you know, this group, whatever, that want to try this. Why not? Do you know what I mean? I think doing it as rolling it out as a full-on business plan could be a bit risky, maybe, especially for smaller distilleries. Even just getting bottles isn't that easy. I mean, like, I'm not trying to advertise here, right? But like, for example, this is our bottle, right? Up until the last few years, I'd say everyone was doing a 700ml bottle. Lark was doing 700s, 500s, 200s, and 100s. They were like unique in that way. Them and Hellers had the whole range of sizes, right? But concentrating mainly on 700s, because that's what the consumer wanted. They still do, but at the same time, there's an ability there to go 500, reduce the price point, so it allows more people to try the product. They can afford to buy that and someone else's as well. Do you know what I mean? We were looking at doing smaller bottles because 200 mils, for example, was a good balance. When I was at LAC, it worked at markets. Lots of people liked it because they could get them for presents, but also get them for themselves, so they could get a real good idea of what that whiskey that they were drinking. But at the same time, it's a great present. Nobody's going to feel like they were robbed getting 200 mils of a good quality whiskey, you know. So
oh God, no.
Kind of weigh it up, you know.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. One thing that we do at Craftworks. So we have a 375ml bottle.
Yeah. Love it. Nice.
47.5%, $95.
Beautiful.
And that's our entry. It's called the Capity. We're in Capity. It's called the Capity. It's our tourist bottle. Never, ever, ever get a pushback on it, ever.
No.
It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. And we've now rolled it into gin. We've got 375ml gin for $48.
Yeah.
So it's the brother-sister combination. So it works well. And you know, you hear people on social media say Australian whiskey is very expensive, and then you hear people say, why don't they bottle in 750 mils or 700 mils? It's all right. What people need to understand, and I think we, as craft distillers, we do explain it correctly, in my opinion, that we're not distilleries that are making at least 1 million litres a year. I mean, Craftworks this year, I think if we hit 2,500 litres, we've hit our target for the year, right? Yep. So we don't have those economies of scales. We're not bringing in tankers of grain, pellets of grain, or no, bulker bags of grain, all that sort of thing. And so you got to be authentic in your story. You got to show what you do and how you do it, and say, this is what it costs, right? And this is our lives. This is our business. You know, we've got families to feed and everything else. So, you know, if you buy, fantastic. If you don't, that's fine. Don't.
It's just not for them.
It's just not for them. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. And that economy of scale is not just based on the cost of spirit, but every part of the process, you know, packaging, it adds up so much when you're doing small scale.
Yeah. Everything's a multiplier.
Yeah, you know, you're looking at dollars rather than cents. And when you're looking at that over hundreds of bottles, you can see how they can sell their whiskey at a certain price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Now I'm on my next Tasmanian whiskey. So these samples are courtesy of the whiskey list. Thanks, Ollie. This one is the Adams Slosh Cask.
Nice.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was speaking to Adam the other day and going, mate, this is sensational. This really is sensational. So
He's a bloody good lad. The two of them are.
Yeah. And they've got an interesting story. Next year I'll be talking to them. But they just how it sort of leads to my next question about the whole whiskey community in Tasmania and how it was a very small group of people.
Yeah.
It was almost like a Marvel comic. It was the Avengers sort of thing, and then it's just grown and grown and grown and grown. So how is that community overall? Is it a tight community? Is it factional? Is it you know what I mean?
It's a good question. It's a fair question. Look, when I first came over here, there was 8 distilleries in Tassie, and then I started working at LARP. That was my very first ever job when I first came here, and it was behind the bar. So I've never poured a pint, never even made a coffee, to be honest, right? And there I was pulling pints for people and making coffees for all these bloody tourists that come in on the cruise ships, right?
But you've got the accent, so it's fine.
Every Friday, right? The thing that really struck me, the thing that really got me thinking, my God, I love this, was every Friday, pretty much every distillery had someone there at the cellar door. They would all be sitting together, pouring whiskies, bringing in a bottle of something that they brought. Tim Duckett especially, right? He'd bring a bottle of different whiskey every week, and he'd pour a couple of glasses, nice big healthy glasses for the staff, and go, right, yeah, guys, you enjoy that. And then he'd sit down with Bill and Len, and he'd sit down with Pat McGuire and all the rest of them, and then they would just big Mr. Nick as well, for anyone that knows him, bloody legend. And it was amazing. I just loved that. And I used to love knocking off. I used to always get the earlier shifts, so I didn't have to work the way through the night. And I'd sit in the mall and just really kind of feel part of it. And I thought, where in the world would you get this? So for me, it all started on the basis of this really tight-knit, really collaborative, almost family setting. That I thought, you know what, I love being part of this. I feel that there's support and everyone wants each person to do well, but everyone's creating something different and unique in their own right.
Yep.
And as it's grown on that foundation that, the people will impart, those distillers will impart their knowledge, their passion, advice, mistakes that they've made, things that have worked well for them. There's no problem with that. Yeah, they've got some things that they want to keep a hold of, keep it secret. That's normal, But generally, there's that sense of, wishing people well. But at the end of the day, it reflects on your brand. You want, if someone is going to start up a distillery, well, you can't help that, right? But you want that person or those people or that group or whoever it is to do well, so that that's going to continue to reflect well on your brand. Yeah. Whether it be, the Crafty, Craftworks, Derwent, whether it be Tasmanian, South Australian, New South Wales, to Australian in general as a whole. You want the new setups to reflect the quality, the hard work and effort that's been put in such a short space of time, but to be worldwide recognised. So that's continued, I've found.
Right, good.
Like I was the president of the association for the best part of 4 years. So I've saw it grown from a relatively small number to 60 distilleries. And for the most part, I'd say yes, that still continues to be the way. When we meet up for the meetings, we push for a more social aspect. So regardless of whether you'll get heated arguments, you'll get somebody thinking that we should be doing this, other people think we should be doing that, but ultimately we all want the same thing, and at the end of it, we can all sit down, have a whiskey, have a pint, and everyone's great mates with each other. When we come up to ADA meetings or anything like that, it's the same thing I find as well. And I love that. I love that our industry's continued that collaborative process. But at the same time, I think, look, you maybe said it earlier on, look, it's inevitable. There will become distilleries that might get big enough or go off in their own direction, which is fine. I think that collaborative element will still exist. And I think that there's room for, if someone wants to become a a big corporate entity that has their own agendas and whatever, then that's fine. That's going to happen. We're naive and daft to think that that's not going to happen. But I think that there's still a lot of room for that collaborative mentality still in Australia, that we can work on our own.
Yeah.
Separate thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do. It's our strength, and it. One of the questions that gets asked or put out there occasionally is, as Australia develops, and more distilleries set up, is there going to be a regional identity like there is in Scotland with Lowlands, Highlands, Isla and all that? My personal belief is no. I think we're not regional. I think there's people making different styles of whiskey in the same locations, and so I think it's going to be a diversity of spirits, whiskey, not regionalised. What's your take on it?
Yeah, fair enough. It's a fair point. Look, I'll say from a Tasmanian perspective, only because obviously I've been representing distillery down here. You're totally
you've got
right,
a unique
mate.
perspective.
There's so many aspects. There's so many variables in what we do, from how you want your story to be perceived, everything from how you the malts that you're using, the styles that you're creating. The final product is, there's so much variables there that it's hard to pinpoint a specific region will produce a specific style of spirit. I don't think that exists here. I think that's you trying to use a template that's been used elsewhere that doesn't comply here. I think maybe even states. If you look at like the recent South Australian push for tourism, there's a market there for South Australia having their own thing, Tasmania having their own thing. It's not a competition. It's just that it might be seen as oh wow, we're going to come to New South Wales. We've got Craftworks, we've got all these other distilleries. You were talking about Manly earlier on, that are all producing phenomenal spirits, all very different and appealing to a whole range of different people. You're getting that in each state that you go to. You know what I mean? So, if anything, there's your region there. So
So what is Derwent whiskey? What makes you different?
Look, I suppose it's just that it's an evolution. It's like it's coming from my passion and Emma's passion, having coming into an industry new, green, but full of passion, full of excitement, full of love for what we've seen, learning from everyone that was there before and continuing to learn, but realizing, identifying how we want to fit into it. We're a family story. We're a small distillery. We're producing something that we love. We're listening to our audience. We're looking to.
So we know Crafty's got his he's very chocolatey. He's very heavy, very strong flavors. What can we expect from a Derwent?
I think with I was talking to Matt Bailey about this actually. With the Tassie industry, I think most of our whiskies down here, we pride ourselves on this rich, viscous, oily, bold, fruity characters that come from the whiskies, right?
Malt driven.
Absolutely malt driven. Yeah. So that's it. It's all malt. It's pretty much every one of us is just it's malt whiskey. I want to keep doing that. That's my passion. It's my main drive. Unfortunately for us, we've not had the ability to experiment with different malts or different mash bills. We're limited to how far the breweries can take that for us. The plan for Derwent is over three stages, basically, is to have our own setup where we can make our own mistakes and experiment with from the mash side of things. I want to continue doing malt whiskies. I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at different barrel types and creating my own core lines based on those barrel types. And then from that, I'll play a bit with mash bills after and yeast as well.
Will that include peated expressions or?
Yeah, Did you say, what was that last? Peated, yeah. I thought
Will
you
they
said-
include peated?
Yes, absolutely. Probably seasonal, you know, so I'll do, because I've only got the one still to start with, because a small distillery, I'll be able to distill 500 litres at a time, basically, in the still.
Right.
So I'm looking at to make the full use of the equipment I've got with the peat malt. I'll probably do like a seasonal, so it'll be just peated, like kind of like Lechek, you know, like where it's like percentage of the year it's peated whiskey, and then for the bulk of the year it'll be non-peated, so that way I'm not constantly chopping and changing between. So you're not going to get peat coming through certain lines.
Yeah.
And will that be like, is that like a quintessential Scottish peat, or are you looking, is there a Tasmanian peat?
Here's the thing, right? Yeah, it's a great question. I think we're limited to the fact that if you want to use Tasmanian peat, you need to have the license to mine that peat.
Right.
So Lark, Overeem, who are using the peat bog at Brown Marsh Bog, that's pretty much just off the geographical centre of Tasmania. And if you stand on the peat bog, I love it. It's one of my favourite places in the world. It's so serene. It's amazing, right? How's the Serenity? It's phenomenal, right? And literally, you can stand in the one spot, do a 360, and you're surrounded by hills. So there's like, it's like you're caught in this wee, the land that time forgot kind of thing, you know. So there's no coastal influence coming in. There's nothing. It's just that it's sphagnum grass, sphagnum moss and button grass that are the main vegetation that's formed that peat. It gives you a richness, a sweetness. It's lovely, but it's not that Scottish peat. You know, it's not got that iodine, salty, fishy, briny characters. I'd love to use Tassie peat, but I would like to use coastal Tassie peat. It's just getting the ability to get access to that peat.
Is it a fair comment to say with Tassie peat compared to Scottish peat, in a young whiskey, you'll retain that smokiness, but in an older whiskey, Tassie peat tends to die off compared to a Scottish peat. So if you're trying to build a big, buffy Australian peated whiskey, you tend to use a Scottish peat. I don't do it myself, but talking to other distillers, there's a lot using Scottish peat, and I think that's the reason.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. Okay, come to your barrel program, because I'm always fascinated by the discussion about the barrel influence. You know, at one end of the spectrum, you've got 70% of your flavour comes from the barrel. The other school of thought is, well, if you're using heavily shaved casks, recharred casks, and second fill, third fill, no, not really. And I'm leaning more and more towards almost a 50-50, 60-40 split. Really want the spirit to speak.
I agree with that. That's where I come from, 100%. So Taz Cask Company, or Master Cask, so they've got, you'll know, but they've got like SA Cooperage and Taz Cask Company down here in Tasmania. So that is whenever he comes to Tasmania, I'll pick his brain. That guy's got 25, 30 years in the industry between wine and spirits. So he's been focused on wood. So I'll pick his brain on saying, right, well, what's your thoughts on this? Your thoughts on that? He would do the same when he first came here, when he was getting to know everyone in the spirits industry. And I see that, I see it as that, yes, we say how the barrel gives it 70% in the flavour. Well, if that's the case, what's the point? It doesn't matter how you make your spirit. Do you know what I mean? If it's given 70% in the flavour, it should be the fact that it creates, it influences 70% of the character. It's essentially the hero is the spirit that you're creating. The barrel is taken from and influencing it with, what's the wood itself, the tannins, the oak, the previous occupant. At the same time, it's taking it in volatility. So it's essentially moulding that spirit. The spirit should be the one that constant throughout the whole thing. I think when I first was doing this, it was all about first fill barrels, big, bold, fruity, juicy, sweet flavours. Whereas I want to look at the science of it and go, well, no, I'll give an example. Sorry, I'm talking rubbish here.
You're shooting the shit, my friend.
Yeah, shooting the shit. Yeah, for me. Darren and I used to drink like in our jammies, right, till 4 a.m, just shooting the shit. Literally, right? That was what we did. Yeah. And at the time, everybody was using big sweet old sherry casks. So you were getting big sherry bombs. That was the result, right? And I loved that, and everyone loved that. But we were talking about how not everyone was shying away from dry sherry casks. Now I'm assuming that Darren just had a pile of dry sherry casks that he couldn't fucking shift, right? So he was trying to get me encouraged everyone to bloody buy them for him, right? But I really saw the logic in it. I thought, well, why not create a spirit that complements that or contrasts that so that you're creating something similar or something that your customer expects, but give it a different twist so that it's the spirit that's creating the length, or as a, you know, like a sherry cask to me is like big, bold, punchy, spicy, fruity flavors, kind of dries off and finishes shorter than, say, like a port cask, right? Yeah. So why not create a spirit that is going to give you length and viscosity and flavour and sweetness that's going to counter the drier aspects of the sherry, so that you're actually getting not 70% sherry flavour. It's the spirit that's actually giving you most of the final character, you know. So that's what it is. My para casks are actually dry sherry casks. Right. Yeah. So my second release that I did was a single cask from my first run, and that one. So Moorsey, Alex Moores from Dark Valley. We entered our whiskies into the the Independent Bottlers Challenge. Again, not advertising, not doing that, right? Just the fact that, you know, a non-Scotch category. Here's a first attempt, essentially. You know, here's my take on how a spirit should work with a dry sherry cask to create what I think I would like to see in a sherry cask, and to get the silver for that category was, you know, it shows that I've, you know, there's something in that. There's something in that, at least. You know what I mean? Silver's first loser. So
let's just put it out there also that Alex did win gold.
He won gold. So fair play,
we won silver 2 years ago for
nice work.
For that baby.
Of course.
Yeah. Good man. Good.
Yeah. So that was cool. I got a phone call from who was it? It might have been Dan Woolley, actually.
Oh yeah.
No, it was a text, and it was like 5 a.m. It was like, what the fuck? It was pretty cool.
Another legend of the industry.
Yeah, and geez, look what he's doing right now.
He's doing well, isn't he?
Yeah.
Really so good on him.
I mean, he's really aced it. He really has. So he's definitely a person to keep an eye on, see what he's up to.
It was funny today. Someone did a post. Michael did a post on I think it was AWAS, and he had our bottle of I Am, and he had a bottle of Highwayman, and it was like, bring it on, the challenge is the challenge.
It's a rumble.
Oh, going head to head. Don't you love it? You just love that stuff.
Who's going to win that one then?
I don't know. I'll let Michael decide that. If it goes all quiet, he's watching now and going, I'm not doing anything. I'm staying out of this. He's no fool. Yeah. How are we going for time, Todd?
Okay, it's just about 9:20.
What time do we start? I thought, so we're about the hour and a half mark.
Yeah, we're coming up to an hour.
We're a little late, but we're on time.
All right, that's good. Okay, so Robbie and Emma, overseas, there's a lot of exciting things happening.
Yes.
I watched a webinar last night from Crisp Malt, and it was 3 parties. It was Crisp, it was Holyrood in Edinburgh Distillery, and it was, I can't remember her name, and she's doing a PhD on specialty malts in distilling and flavour profile. It was an incredibly deep dive. I'll send you the link, because if you haven't seen it, seriously, it was really exciting stuff. And that stuff really excites me. stuff that's happening in America. You look at what Corsair's done. You look at what Westland's done. Westwood, what they're doing with stout casks, it's just amazing. But then I look at it and go, but Scottish have a lot of restrictions on how they can do things, and Americans have a lot of restrictions on how they can do things.
Yeah.
In Australia, we don't have those restrictions.
True.
We have the basic restrictions, but there's a lot of restrictions they have that we don't have. So from an exploratory standpoint, from a creativity standpoint, it's awesome. So from your standpoint, where do you take your inspiration outside of Australia? What excites you?
Right. Well, what first got me excited, if I go right back, right? Was Dalmore, actually. Literally, it was my mum and my stepdad, who you've met, actually. It was when we were at the when it was the Twas versus Whiskey Adventures, and
I saw a photo of that the other night. It was incredible. That
was awesome.
That was a top night.
Martin talks about that all the time.
Oh, do you know what? I've got to say this, right? Where he's watching right now, or where he watches it on, on repeat, right? My stepdad loves you, right? Thinks you're brilliant. Martin, right? He loves you.
Another Martin.
Totally loves you, right? He loves what you're doing, loves everything about it. So he's like, Crafty, man, he'll like every single fucking thing you put up, right? He's a good lad, so but him and my mum, they're the two main people who got me really passionate about whiskey, taking it beyond just the whole half and a half, half and half in the pub, do you know what I mean? You just a whiskey chaser with the beer. Yeah. And when I moved to London, I was kind of like, I was a bit kind of lost. Do you know what I mean? Like really missing home and missing, a constant. So I latched onto like Tunnock's tea cakes, Scottish whiskey and all the rest of it, right? And I was getting a present for my mate, Andrew. Have you ever seen Taggart?
Yeah.
Right, so he was Taggart's daughter's partner. Right, so he's that. He's like he was like the son-in-law of Taggart and Taggart. And so it was his birthday coming up. Yeah, he's brilliant.
So bad as well.
He used to do play school and all that. He's kind of a big deal. So basically I needed to get my bottle. I wanted to get my bottle of whiskey. That's what I saw. And I went to the whiskey shop in Selfridges, and I went and talked to the guy in there, and I says, "Look, mate, I need to get a really good whiskey for my friend. Talk me through it. Go." Right? And he says, right. So he was talking to me about the history of the Dalmore and the Mackenzie clan, and I thought, do you know what? I love the story there. I love the fact that I've never thought of putting a story behind a whiskey or a bottle of inanimate object of liquid. Do you know what I mean? There's something that makes me want to know more about that. Yeah. And when I actually gave him the bottle, we're used to like Johnny Walkers, and for the most part, most Glaswegians, that's what you just drink whatever's on the shelf and you just knock in facts to get drunk. This was the first time that I actually sat down with different people and really appreciated what we were drinking, and I thought, holy shit. And then from then on, I just went into the world of whiskey just with like open arms and just going, holy shit, just teach me everything, everything, every publication, nice. Anyone that can talk whiskey, I want to talk to you. That's what we're talking about tonight. Do you know what I mean? And so for me, Dalmore was definitely the thing that really sparked,
Dalmore,
interest, cool. So it was a Dalmore 15. It was Dalmore 15.
Right.
To the point where we were in the Winston on one of my birthdays, and there was a full bottle of Dalmore 15, and everyone kept on buying me a nip of Dalmore 15, and we finished the bottle. Do you know what I mean? But no, so there's that external influence. I think when 2015, when we were at Redlands, Em and I went a 2-week trip to Scotland, or 2-week distillery trip to Scotland, and we went around 14 different distilleries, and Glenmorangie and Lagavulin were the two standout experiences that we got. So we had Ian from Lagavulin, and we had the whole team at Glenmorangie who were just phenomenal, but not just them, Glengoyne, Auchentoshan, there was McAllen, Glenlivet, Glenfiddich, all those guys, Aberlour. And the thing that really struck me was how supportive they all were of our journey and into this and they all knew about Tasmania and Australia. I say Tasmania just because that's where I was telling them I was from, but it was in general that there was an Australian scene out there that they've taken notice of, not seen it as, you know, in a negative light where it's a competition or whatever. They were so interested in it that when I finished my tour at Glenmorangie, the general manager came in and says, "You're Robbie?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he says, you know, "I'm the general manager." I went, "I know." And he's like, "Yeah, I've just knocked an hour off of my time so I can come down and have a chat with you." And he sat down with me for a whole hour, gave me his number and says, "Look, if there's anything that we can do, please let us know."
Yeah. I'm so excited about what we're doing in Australia. We really are. Yeah.
It's phenomenal, the level of support that I felt that we were getting from all those distilleries. And even like to the point where some of the distillers, like Duncan from Glengoyne, got teary-eyed, you know, because he's remembering back to how they used to make whiskey, you know, before it was all at the bean counters and the, you know, and the taking over it all. It's like we're doing something that they would love to be doing themselves, you know, where they've got more of an input, more of an impact into how the final spirit comes about, not just running to a recipe sheet and pushing some buttons. And the fact that most distilleries could have more people here on the floor than there is in any distillery in Scotland. Do you know what I mean? It's phenomenal. So for me, I think that's fueled my passion even more, is the fact that I'm doing something, I'm now starting something of my own that they wish they could be doing. Do you know what I mean? And that to me, that really makes me really more excited, you know, and the fact that I know that there's eyes on all of us from all over the world. We've opened everyone up to this, and everyone's like, shit, Australia's really performing here, and rightly so. It's exciting, mate. It's the golden era. I think we're all being part of the industry right now. It's like, I'm proud of it, absolutely proud of it, and totally motivated by it.
Mate, you're preaching to the converted.
Yeah, totally.
It's we've all got to get together at some stage. I mean, Tasmania is the spiritual home of Australian whiskey, and I'll be honest, every time I come to Tasmania, I just have a ball. And you do feel it. You come off the plane and you just feel that connection, and just catching up with people is just. It's just great, you know. It's such a great community, but it's once things open up a bit, I'm hoping next year to come down to Tassie for a little trip and research. Taxman,
awesome,
research.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I can't wait till mid-January when I'm down there. That'll be awesome.
Oh yeah, you're going down, aren't you?
I am, yes. Launceston area.
Watch out.
I got the hot tips before we started.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Queenstown's at the top of the list, I believe.
Oh,
Crafty, do you do
PTSD.
fly fishing, mate?
Me?
Yeah.
The last time I went fly fishing, I basically threw the rod in the river.
Really?
I didn't quite do it right.
Right.
I really enjoyed sleeping just in the grass. That was fun. And drinking, but fly fishing, no. But if you want to educate me in the finer art,
is that where you're fishing, or where
I'd be showing you how to do it wrong, right? That's just me.
Is that where you fish in a river with your fly open, or is that something different?
Yeah, you just pee out whiskey, mate, and it's like they flock right to it, you know.
Just grab them.
You fly fish with Bill a bit, don't you? Or do you still do that, or you used to?
Yeah, still do it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if you're coming down, let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and vice versa. When if you're coming up to the mainland, getting up to Sydney, mate, we'll absolutely have to catch up.
Sounds good, mate.
We've been talking about doing a bit of a road trip.
Yeah,
today,
so. We'll talk about that. Yeah, absolutely.
The problem with the road trip nowadays is I had someone who was planning a road trip in New South Wales, and he said, "Okay, so I'm going to do Joadja.
That's where I really want to visit. Yeah,
Joadja's cool. It's
absolutely love their stuff. We were blown away. We bought a bottle of their Pedro matured, and us and our wonderful friends Mickey and Sam came over, and we were all absolutely blown away. So much so that I reached out to the guys from Joadja and thanked them, because it was such an amazing bottle of whiskey. Yeah, they're doing great stuff.
And they're husband and wife, Val and Elisa. They're beautiful people, super friendly. If you go there, they'll feed you, so be prepared. That sort of just goes with the territory. But so this guy was doing. He's part of the Blue Mountains Whiskey Club, which is a local whiskey club, and he was going. I'm going to go to Joadja. We're going to go to Riverbourne. We're going to go to Aisling. We're going to go to Corowa. We're going to get Blackgate. We're going to go to Craftworks, and we're going to do it in 4 days. And I said, no, you won't.
Yeah.
So day one, they went to Joadja. They got to Marty's, Riverbourne, at 11 o'clock at night. So yeah, they were behind the whole time.
Yeah.
They had a fantastic time, and there's a lot of good places to visit, and everyone's open arms, and it's great. So you got to come up, and we'll show you some New South Wales hospitality.
I've got to say, what was happening with Martin's hair?
Oh, isn't that great?
Whoa, unbelievable. It's a COVID cut if ever there was one, eh? Bloody know, mate.
He looks young he looks so young. He's different. He's the grumpy old man. I call him the kid. He calls himself the grumpy old man. I thought it was such a good name. I came up with a label because it was one of his spirits, when it was independent bottling. But he's got these long flowing locks, and he looks young, and he's feisty as ever. He's very feisty.
Lovely man.
I remember when he came to Kempton to do the distillery school, or was it even Redlands? I can't remember. It was Redlands, wasn't it?
It was Redlands.
And we were talking about like the what to look for in the new make spirit. When you're looking for the ethanol coming through, and you look for the sweetie. Almost like the pear drops. I would always reference it to pear drops.
Yep.
Which was like the hard-boiled sweeties. And I'm not joking you, not that long after I got a parcel sent through, and I thought, oh cool, is this Robbie Gilligan Redlands Distillery, blah, blah, blah. And it was a whole box, like huge box full of bloody pear drops from Martin. I was like, oh, you're a legend, because I was missing them, from back home. He's a good lad, tell me.
He's a top bloke. I think I call him the oldest distiller in Australia. I think he is. He would be, And his great pleasure is getting into his shed, turning his Pavarotti up loud, and making lots of mistakes and not turning valves off correctly and things like that.
We all do that sometimes.
Have you ever imploded a still?
No.
Touch wood.
Right, good. It's not a nice experience, definitely not.
I had a horror one last week though. I preset the still to about 70 was it? Or about 70 degrees, and turned it off, went to bed, woke up in the morning, thought, yep, cool. Turned the elements back on, and then I went and had breakfast, bring it up to temp. And then I came in, and I thought, the spirit's hot. Why is the spirit hot? So the condenser was running.
Yeah.
All right, but the spirit was hot. And I thought, what the hell? And the pump had switched off. So we used to have the pump in the shed. And Todd can tell you this story. The pump would go, so you couldn't have a conversation, right?
Yeah.
And then after 3 years, I said to Todd one day, why do we have the pump in the shed? Why couldn't we have the pump outside?
This was a brainwave moment.
So we moved the pump outside, and all of a sudden you can actually hear the trickle of spirit and the rolling boil, and you go, oh wow, this is pleasant. There's no The downside though is if something does happen to the pump, you don't know.
Yeah.
And so what had happened is the pump had switched off. By the time I got to it and checked the spirit, so it was first runnings supposedly, and it was down at about 30%. And I was like, oh yeah, what? And it was already a shit brew thanks to Todd. And
it was my first attempt at making the brew again after many months. So
that's why it's not paid.
Todd's not on the payroll. He works for whiskey.
When I'm lucky, otherwise I'm just working.
So yeah, so we all have our horror experiences.
Totally, mate.
Yeah, it's all part of it, and you just sort of shrug your shoulders and move on to the next thing, don't you? That's what you can do.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
That's
we've
what
all
it
been
is.
there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, guys.
So we've just hit 9:40. So
All
All right.
good.
Yeah. So we'll wrap it up.
Yep.
So guys, send me a bottle. I'll
Will do.
fix you up. I actually started to order it the other day, and then I got distracted with the website and never finished it off. So that's sensational. I want a bottle,
Thanks,
please.
pal. Appreciate
That'd be
that.
good. Yeah, no, that's good. And just to finish up, what's coming up in your world? What's your foreseeable future?
Foreseeable future. Well, if the build's coming along, so I'm just looking forward to hopefully early half of next year getting the build set up and it's still creating some spirit. Hopefully, would be ideal.
Yeah. Keep getting creative and experimenting. I think a lot of our IB releases that we're trying to focus on doing a bit of more vatting and having a play around with alcohol percentages as well with our upcoming releases.
Yeah, nice. Yep.
Yeah.
I've got about 55 barrels of whiskey.
Say again?
I've got about 55 barrels of whiskey.
Yeah, right.
Of different shapes and sizes. So the smallest one being about like 23 litres and up to 125 litres for the bigger ones.
Nice.
Yeah, so we've got, initially it was 14 different styles of barrels. So just looking at, different cuts, mash bills and barrel styles, barrel types and sizes, realising that botrytis just, if I'm going forward with that, I wouldn't use 20 litre barrels or 24 litre barrels because botrytis is aged in pretty much new French oak. And the French oak just dominates it completely. So with that whiskey that you've got, I took it straight out the barrel at 2 years and a day. The French oak just completely dominated it. It wasn't coming out this nice, delicate, almost sweet character that I would have liked it to be. It was very earthy and porcini mushrooms and spices. So to get that kind of help it, refine itself and it needed more aging. Obviously, I couldn't do that in another French oak barrel. So I got a second fill single malt ex bourbon barrel.
Right.
That was 200 litres, and that barrel nearly killed me. Like literally nearly killed me. I picked up from a well-known distillery, strapped into the back of my ute. 20 minutes later, I'm turning onto one of the main roads, and I fell asleep at the wheel. And and I woke up doing about 150 on the wrong side of the road again, coming past. And I literally I took it off road, and it was a Ford Falcon Marlin. It's not designed for off road at all, and it's a heavy beast. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I hit a couple of ditches, and one big one shot me up with the and front heavy. It smashed down front into the ground, and then that's it, just all over the place.
Yeah, smashed the back window out.
Yeah, I wrote off the car. So the barrel actually smashed right through the window, and fortunately it was empty, but it's 60 kilos empty. So full it would have been what, quarter of a ton.
The barrel actually has a bit of the red paint.
Oh, it's got the last of my car. My car's gone. My car's like gone to car heaven, right? And it's there's a huge dent in the barrel, and there's like all this red paint. And when I checked the integrity of the barrel, it stood up. It was good. So I thought, right, there's my finishing barrel for the botrytis cask. So that was that one. That's all that's left in my car is red paint on that bloody barrel. That was it. I was going to call it Marlin Spirit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's such a story. Jesus.
Wow.
So
that's a good one to finish up, my friends. That was a really good night. That was a good shooting the shit.
We loved it, mate. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone.
No, thank you. And it is our last one. We do them every 2 weeks, and we've got enough content to go to 2022 now, which is fantastic. It's the last one. So to everyone out there,
last one for 2020.
Last one for 2020. Yes.
Can I just raise a toast to everybody then? This is my favourite toast. It's basically, especially with COVID happening, and a lot of us have been in isolation for most part of this year. There's a lot of people going through a lot of shit and hard times and, you know, been it rough. This is a good time. This has been a good night, you know, and we've been shooting the shit and having a really great time with each other. And I'm sure there's other people that would want to be with us, sharing that with us and enjoying that. So it's to toast people that we wish could be here and aren't. Here's to us. Was like us, Guy Few, Nero did. Mere's the pie.
Oh, love it.
Cheers.
Awesome.
Slanjava.
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 And I finished with a flock shot. Awesome. Wow.
Glad I know what that is now.
There's not much left, unfortunately. All right, everyone. Thanks again. We'll see you in the new year. We've got an American distiller lined up. We've got a number of Australian distillers. We're going to be talking to a craft maltster. We're going to be talking to another cooperage and a few other surprises, and we'll see where we go with it. And the other thing is we've decided that we're going to do this in podcast format as well, because you don't necessarily have to sit there and watch us. You can just listen to us.
Shit, did I hit record?
Oh, geez.
No, it's all right. It's okay. I did.
All right. So these are typically between an hour and a half and 2 hours. And as you know, it's just shooting the shit. We just chatting. So it gives you a good insight to how we talk to each other and how we respect each other and what everyone's doing. And it's an exciting time to be in the space that we are. So good night from Capity. Now I'm going to go and try and find out what caused those flies, and we'll see you around, guys. Take it easy.
Cheers. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you all.
Just go through the old Facebook.
Shutting down.